Very nice to see many familiar faces, and I hope you all are doing well and preparing for the winter. And here we are preparing for the hot, not really summer, after the raining season, monsoon start to finish, then have a very humid and quite hot few weeks. And that is where we are now going towards that kind of weather. Occasionally very strong thunderstorm, then completely clear sky, but humid and hot. Anyway, yeah. Okay, great. So we will start the gathering. We will say the refuge and bodhicitta prayer, those 4 lines. By saying those lines, help us to hold the mind taking refuge in Buddha as our spiritual teacher, mentor, and taking refuge in Dhamma as actual means and methods to be applied in our daily lives, to be experienced within ourselves, and take refuge in Sangha as our spiritual friends or supporters. And holding 3 jewels in these 3 different ways, Buddha as a teacher, Dhamma as an actual application, and Sangha as a spiritual friends, supporters, not only to overcome our, the day-to-day difficulties, but also to overcome, our long-term, the challenges. That is, deep-rooted, those unhealthy mental states, such as ignorance, attachment, aversion, jealousy, envy, and so forth. And propensities or seeds that, very much within our mental continuum to arise these unhealthy mental states, to overcome, to really, by application of Dhamma, to completely eradicate from our mental states. And it is not only our own, to solve our own immediate and long-term challenges, but also try to think, taking refuge in 3 jewels is also ourselves to make, available for the others, to serve others' well-beings. And that is really something useful to not only hold that kind of mind in the spiritual environment or within the spiritual activities, but also hold the mind taking refuge in our daily lives, morning, the day, in the evening, whenever there is a possibility Just, bring that mind as a follower of the teachings of the Buddha. Then, many of us follow Bodhisattva teachings, minor teachings, and you have received many Vajrayana teachings. And in fact, our reading text belongs to that part of the teachings of the Buddha. Then holding bodhicitta, the altruistic awakened mind which really, genuinely, sincerely concerns well-beings of all living creatures, not only our own well-beings, not only our loved ones' well-beings. Of course, those are important. Our own well-beings, our well-beings of our loved ones, and our friends. But it is equally important us to have the ability to think well-beings of others. Whatever, which kind of relationship that we have at the current level, those are the very temporary, those are the very superficial, therefore, training our mind to able to think for the well-beings of many, many living beings without any exceptions, and also not only their immediate needs, such as food, shelter, medicine, friendship, but also something for their long-term needs that is, completely free from dukkha and the origins of dukkha. Though at this stage, we may not have the full capacity or capability to serve that level, but try to think where I'm going to work to have that kind of what you call the capability. And that is what meaning of, experiencing full enlightenment, experiencing or achieving whatever term that we use, to attaining full enlightenment means have that kind of, capability, mental strength, and skills to serve living beings' immediate needs and long-term needs. And, the training right here and now, coming weeks, months, years, and decades. Whenever there is opportunity, even if it is very short moment, even if it is very small things, to serve others, really to serve others with the, with this mind. And therefore, so we are, they're going to say the refuge and bodhicitta lines, and while saying the lines, hold these two minds. Sangye Chedang Soji Chonamala Chanjo Pando Dane Dage Jinso Jibe Chonam Dola Penje Sangye Tobana Sangye Chedang Soji Chonam Chanjo Pando Dane Dage Jinso Jibe Chonam Dola Penje Sangye Tobana Sangye Chödang Songye Chonam Chanjo Pado Dane Daso Dage Jinso Yebe Chonam Jola Penje Sangye Oh yeah. These two mental states, mind taking refuge, and the altruistic awakened mind as our main intention, motivation to join this gathering. Now we will say the Chenrezig mantra, Om Mani Padme Hum, together several times. Though verbally we are saying this 6-syllable Avalokitashvara mantra, mentally hold a strong loving kindness and compassion towards all living creatures. That includes ourselves, our loved ones. Nobody is excluded. Every living creature is included. So having that kind of, strong compassion, that means from our heart, the seeing, feeling, thinking that living beings, all living beings to be free from causes of suffering and the sufferings at all the levels of sufferings, physical and mental, within the mental, gross and subtle, including the seeds of, origins of suffering, to be completely, living beings, to be completely, overcome or free from the suffering and origins of suffering. Have that kind of strong, without any form of hesitation. And if you like to visualize Chenrezig as part of our reading the text, His Holiness the Dalai Lama at his heart form Chenrezig, and the Chenrezig's heart syllable free. If you are able to do that visualization, do so. And from the, those His Holiness and Chenrezig's heart that are free, in the aspect of multicolored lines, in the nature of great compassion, goes out towards all living beings, purify all their difficulties, physical and mental difficulties. You can do that kind of visualization too. Om Mani Oh, yeah. Thank you. So our reading, we are reading at the section requesting request to actualize the gradual path, which is on page 9. So, after full visualization of His Holiness the Dalai Lama at his heart from Chenrezig, at the Chenrezig's heart, the syllable letter free, then, to invoke or to invite all the, Buddhas and Dharma and Sangha to dissolve into, His Holiness and our visualization. Then strongly thinking, imagining that, that visualization of His Holiness Dalai Lama with this, with the at his heart, Avalokiteshvara's heart, letter free, become, embodiment of all the enlightened beings, Buddhas, Dharma, and the Sangha. After that, then, engage in performing the 7-limb prayer, from the prostrations to the dedication. Then here, mandala offering. So after that, after the mandala offering, then recite, His Holiness Dalai Lama's mantra, name that we have seen. So during the recitation, although verbally, saying His Holiness Dalai Lama's name in Sanskrit, Om A Guru Bhajatara Wakinda Sumati Shasana Tara Saminda Shirivada Sawaside Hung, while saying that, then also from our heart, what we are requesting to His Holiness, and at his heart, Avalokiteshvara, and we are requesting this, the gradual path to be actualized within ourselves. And as our first two verses, or the verses, bestow on me your blessings, and we have already discussed about the meaning of blessings. Chinlap, Chingi Lapa, blessing in the sense from the Buddhist understanding, to transform our mental continuum. To transform our mental continuum from our unenlightened mental state, overall, from this unenlightened mental state into fully awakened mental state. And that is the meaning of blessings. Lapa, Chingi Lapa. In other words, transformation, Gua, or changing from an enlightened state of mind into fully awakened state of mind, overall. But here, the what you call the different stages. So the last two, the first two verses that we read, the first verse is very much relevant to that we, I've been keep reading last few times from this text. From this text, may I be cared for by true spiritual friends, filled with knowledge and insight, senses still, minds controlled, loving, compassionate, and with courage, untiring in working for others, That's what I have read several times. And this first 5 lines: bestow upon me your blessings. Bestow on me your blessings to be devoted to my master or to my teacher with the purest thoughts and actions, gaining confidence that you, and this is what here, because our mental states are not completely free from, ignorance, aversions, attachment, jealousy, envy, and so on and so forth, and very much, influenced by the materialistic, way of thinking, and so if our connection, relationship with our spiritual teachers, in this case, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, or all our spiritual teachers, with the action, with the thoughts, if there are some problems, if there are some difficulties, if there are some blockage, these to be changed, these mental state to be changed, to be transformed. And that's what here saying, "Oh, compassionate Holy Master are the base of temporary and everlasting bliss." And this is what I have already mentioned. What is the temporary and the everlasting? For you elucidate the pure path, free from all deception, and embodied totality of refuge, past number in the sense huge number, countless number, and so that is, in certain extents, though we all have Buddha nature, we all have the seeds to attain enlightenment. We all have the mental capacity to, to make the right judgment and to read the text, but still, to have it is important and it is very wise to have spiritual masters to show us the directions, right path to this, that our long-term goal, not only in this lifetime, but lifetime after lifetime, until enlightenment is experienced within ourselves to serve all living creatures. And having qualified spiritual masters, 1, 200, it is up to the individuals. There isn't a particular numbers set. And so that is the first thing, which is already read, and I just remind, which is. Then the second one is the 5 lines here: bestow on me your blessings to live a life of Dharma. And here, many of you know, from the Lama teachings, one of the ignition keys to really, set us into spiritual path, into spiritual journey, is, understanding that we have this amazing, precious life, which has amazing capacity, emotionally and intellectually, and many great facilities, right conditions to utilize this human existence. And at the same time, realizing, understanding this will not last forever. In other words, remembering nature of impermanence. Historical Buddha had taught many times, on this subject on nature of impermanence. As there is a beautiful statement made, a statement is made by the historical Buddha, saying, among the many footprints, elephant footprints are most, impressive, because they have a very heavy body. And among the recollection, among the remembering or reflecting the nature of impermanence is the most powerful, what you call the recollection, nature or remembering. So that is really something here, that on this, which we have already, read these two points. Very, very important to, to meditate on, to familiarize on this. These, that many of us love to meditate on, clay-like mind, illusory body, and that all high, the fancy titles, Great Mahamudra, union of bliss and emptiness. No doubt that if we are able to meditate on these, very fancy, titles, subject, no doubt have a very powerful. But these are the rules. Rules always stay on the, what you call the walls and the foundations. If there were no foundations and the walls to hold the roof cannot stand. It will collapse. Even if you have a beautiful roof to put on, using some of the most modern, materials, but if there's nothing to hold it, it will come down, isn't it? Similar to that. These early, the sort of meditation on these early points, are the very, very important points. These are the foundations. When the foundation is set properly, then we can build the walls and put nice roofs. That is really here important. So it here, in this the second verse, saying not to be distracted by the meaningless activities of this life. Of course, meaningless, in the sense, the relatively, meaningless will become in a different stages, and sometimes it becomes meaningless because we are aging. Something when I was teenager, very, very meaningful, I desperately want, but because, now age over 60, even somebody offer me that opportunity, I will not go near to that. So, meaningless, happy meaning and meaningless. It depends on the, in this case, depends on our long-term goal, long-term aim, and this precious human life has more, what you call the, more capacity than just to make this life comfortable, bring this comfort in this life. We have more capacity to make, so therefore here, and this line which is saying can never be suppressed by the countless treasure of vast. Anyway, yeah, I will say that. Now, so today's our reading will start from the third verse. Bestow on me your blessings to seize the action of non-birth. So this four lines, the verse that we are going to read today, it is very much, in the Lamrim, people who are familiar with the Lamrim teachings, section or part that talk about not only this lifetimes, that sort of sorting out this lifetime, living this, not only living this life with the virtues and the what you call the eliminating or avoiding non-virtuous actions, but also thinking for the next life and the life after, and altogether, really very much what you call the thinking, something to be able to secure at least next life and the life after a fortunate life, in order to continue the spiritual path that we have started in this life. And that is here, here they're saying, if our next life, this life, we are very fortunate, have a human life, human existence, But if we are unable to secure in our next life, if we are unable to secure fortunate life, if we take unfortunate rebirth, then what we have started in this life, the spiritual path, it is almost impossible to continue. I just came back from this afternoon from the gathering, monks gathering in the Tibetan yard, and we have recited about an hour recitation. And while we are reciting some of most, what you call the meaningful texts, there were two dogs, very, very calmly, very peacefully slept in front of more than 500 monks at the middle of the where we are. They have no idea what is going on. So therefore, it is very, very difficult to continue if we are born in an unfortunate rebirth. And to do that, then here, this line, to really avoid as much as we can those non-virtues, bodies, through our body, speech, and mind, and act as much as we can those virtues, and also the taking refuge in three jewels, Here, the taking refuge in three jewels, it means take the Buddha as a teacher who shows us the direction, and follow the teachings that he had given, and seek those, if we need support, seek help from the Sangha, in order to live our life with the more virtually, and avoid all those non-virtues as much as we can. Not only because of the opportunity, because of the situations, not only in that fashion, but very deliberately, very intentionally. That is important. As I mentioned before, share with you one of my, and making a little bit of funny joke to the, English people, queuing for the bus, for the transport, or any kind of queue in the UK is not necessarily, they have a very good heart, because it is the circumstances or the culture provided to queue, to get in the bus or in the train or whatever. Sorry, those English people. But if there were only one bus an hour, I'm not sure whether they were going to queue or they're going to jump the queue. Anyway, sorry. So very deliberately, very intentionally, enhancing virtues, avoiding non-virtues. And that is important. Also, with the understanding of law of cause and effect, karma. If we have created virtues, action, definitely positive virtues results. If we created non-virtues, action, definitely unpleasant consequences. Even though, we may see some people, living their life very, doing very dodgy things, but still looks very successful. It might be the case, but this is we're looking at a very short window period, not looking at the whole, picture. So understanding law of cause and effect, and that is, for example, when we talk about confessing our negativity with these 4 powers, the second power of regret, will come when we understand karma, law of cause and effect. Then, no doubt there's a deep sense of regret when we understand non-virtues are created. Similar to here, very similar here too, to avoid non-virtues, any form of non-virtuous actions. One of the main factors is understanding the law of cause and effect. And that's what here clearly mentioned, isn't it? Bestow on me your blessings to cease actions of non-virtue and accomplish wholesome deeds by being always mindful of causes and effects from kind and harmful acts. And that is really something important, very, very important. And to that, then also we will see the refuge, taking refuge will come. Because we will see the taking Buddha as our teacher. We will see the value of taking Buddha as our teacher. So that all this, and this is the verse, a very, very useful verse to contemplate. Then the next verse, so here, this verse is in Lamrim, Jetson Karpa's Lamrim, all other Tibetan Buddhist tradition, like in tradition, Gunsangwa Me Shelung, and also in Kagyu tradition, Tapo Tarjin, ornament of liberation, and by Tapopa, Gombapa, and so forth. Very similar, the arrangement. And here now, in next verse is, in the Lamrim, the section where we talk about middling scope. Not only acting, creating to secure next life or life after a fortunate life, but, in fact, completely seeking completely free from this circle of birth, aging, sickness, and death by the afflictions and the negative karma. Complete freedom from this, cyclic existence. And that is what here, the middling scope, people who are training their mind, in that level, they are seeking full, complete, liberation from the samsara. To have that kind of, the determination, or that kind of, level, that kind of mental state, that kind of level of mental state, the previous one, are very, very important, is important. Securing next life, life after, 1 or 2 lives, fortunate rebirth, to continue spiritual that we have started. If that is not there, the next is the verse that we are going to read now, that kind of mental state will not occur. And that is the meaning of gradual path. In Tibetan, Lamji Rimba. Lam is the path. Rimba is the gradual, stage by stage, step by step. So it is important. It is important. And here, whole meaning here. Whole meaning is, in this verse that we are going to read, same verse, bestow on me your blessings to practice the 3 higher trainings, motivated by firm renunciation, gained from the clear comprehension. So here, what we need to see, we need to have the, mind, seeing, understanding, as long as my existence is controlled by affliction and karma. Affliction and action led by the afflictions, I have no genuine freedom. We have to see that. We have to see that. If we see that, then this, what mind called renunciation or determination to be free from entire cyclic existence. Not just one, a fortunate rebirth in next life or life after, or few lives, not in that. Although that is important for the training, for the early stage, early step, when that kind of mental state, that kind of stage is secure, then the next mental state, next our step is to be completely free from cyclic existence. And that is what here is, talking about firm renunciation, gained from the clear comprehension that even the prosperity of Lord of Devas, in other words, in our, for example, when I was in UK, occasionally, not that often, occasionally, I may meet or encounter some of those, what you call the, well-off people, financially I'm talking about. And what is on the, tea table, on the tea table, what kind of books are there? Or what kind of magazines are there in the bathroom? So that fascinates me, And that is here. Here, although the term is used, prosperity of Lord of Devas, which we don't know but we know those, financially well-off people, how they live. I don't know. I'm sure. We don't have, many of you don't have any kind of envy or jealousy or anything like that. I don't know. But anyway, so that is here. Whole picture, whole samsara. Yesterday I was reading the news on BBC. The Queen cannot have the public function. Aging, isn't it? So that is the reality, that is the fact. So here, able to see, and the term here is used in the last line. It says, Devas, is merely a deception, like a siren's alluring spell. In Tibetan, it says similuti. That means, I just use this analogy, just a little bit. What's the right word? Anyway, those magazines which have very fancy advertisement and so on and so forth. Either the old paper or or the furniture or anything. So here is talking about something to takes our energy, and then they turn into desire, yearning to have those, and that is what I'm talking about. Some of those samsaric attraction, and that really increases our, what you call it, craving, grasping, and the desire to have. So but able to see them, no matter how beautiful. I'm not saying they are not beautiful. I'm not saying they are not useful. These teachers are not saying there isn't any beautiful in the world. They are saying there are beautiful things. But they also have, these beautiful things also have other side, which has a potential to attract our attention and then turn into grasping, craving, clinging, attachment. And that is the here. So to see that. So this is really, and here the method is mentioned in the first line, isn't it? Bestow on me your blessings to practice the three higher trainings. So 3 higher trainings. Just before our class, I have heard you are having conversation. Some of you have done, the Foundation Buddhist Thoughts. And in the first module, which is the Four Noble Truths. In the Four Noble Truths, the last Noble Truth, which is Noble Truth of Path, which leads to the third Noble Truth of cessation of suffering and origins of suffering, isn't it? So in the fourth Noble Truth of Path, although in the sutra that the Buddha Sutra itself, Four Noble Truth Sutra, Buddha mentioned Noble Eightfold Paths. And many of you know these Noble Eightfold Paths can be put into these 3 trainings. Yeah, do you remember, or you already gone? So, Noble Eightfold Paths, right view, right intention. These 2 put into one training, which is the wisdom, training of wisdom, right action, now myself is not remembering those things, right livelihood, anyway, the next 3 are into training of ethics and right concentration, right mindfulness, and right enthusiasm. These are a training of concentration. So 3 higher trainings are in these 3. Here the term is used higher to, generally training, our self-training in these 3, wisdom, ethics, and the concentration, is common in the Indian ancient spiritual tradition. Hinduism has it, Brahmanism has it, Jainism has it, 3 trainings. And to make it, although these 3 trainings are in all those, what you call the ancient Indian spiritual traditions also talk about. So to differentiate, the Buddhists have 3 higher trainings. And that's what here, 3 higher trainings, Thakpe, Labasum in Tibetan, which is. So in other words, here, what His Holiness have mentioned, for us to really to cut the root of samsara, to be completely free from cyclic existence, is to train ourselves in these 3, things: wisdom, ethics, and concentration. And that's what here in this verse 4, verse 4, fourth verse that we have read. Very, beautifully written in Tibetan. I'm sure in English also beautifully translated. Very beautifully written. I just wanted to say a little bit in here, in the same here verse in English. Yeah, is merely a deception. This is a very powerful word, deception. When I was a young boy, I think it seems that might be the universal story. And before I become monk, went to this local Tibetan school. And one of the subjects that we need to learn is Hindi, the one of the languages in India, Hindi. And in that small story reading, Hindi reading, there's one nice story saying in one area there were, 100 monkeys. And, one night, while they were sleeping on the top of the, what they call tree, which is next to a very clear water. And full moon day, they saw the reflection of the moon in the water. And one of the monkeys thought, oh, moon is falling down there, and he wants to rescue the moon. And of course, he alone won't reach. So he wake up all his friends, saying, come up, wake up and help me to pick up the piece of moon in the water, falling in the water. Not knowing that it is a reflection of the moon. But then, they make a chain holding, but just the first one is going to reach the water, the branch broken, and they all fall into water. So that is deception, isn't it? A nice story, which I remember very clearly. So all this, what we have, samsaric things that we have, including those, what is in those amazing magazines, so that they all have, from their own side, they will not saying, but we ourselves have the, this, what you call those unhealthy mental states, attachment, aversion, ignorance. When they come together, then we are completely, deceived. That's really useful. Okay. Now then the next verse is, in the Lamrim teachings, In the Lamrim teachings, then the next meaning of next verse is stage is training in the great scope. Training in the great scope. So that means, we already have a strong yearning ourselves be free from cyclic existence by seeing the faults, of the cyclic existence. Then on that base, then moving to the next step, which is try to understand other nature of other living beings, other unenlightened living beings. And that is the training our mind into this great scope. Okay. Bestow on me. So here, as I'll just once again remind ourselves, bestow on me your blessings. So bestowing blessings means to really, through receiving teachings, guidance, support, then working ourselves to change our mental states, to transform our mental states. And that is really here currently, although not all the time very much, we are not all the time, self-centered, minded people, not all the time, but self-centered attitude is very much ingrained in our psyche, in our behavior. And here in this verse, what we are seeking blessing from our masters, really seeking blessing to change that mental state, to transform that self-centered mind, that egoistic mind, transform into mind thinking well-beings of others. Well-beings of others. And that is, as you know, there are several, very well-established techniques. Many of you have read many times, heard many times, and I'm sure many of you, that use these techniques, 7-point cause and effect, or equalizing, exchanging oneself with others. Those are the techniques that we should apply. As I mentioned many times in the past, sense of yearning or sense of aspiration to have bodhicitta. Although it is amazing to have that kind of yearning, that kind of aspiration to have bodhicitta, but that alone is not enough to really make actual progress. To really make actual progress, then we need to train our mind step by step by step. Otherwise, we may not make that much transformation. If we stay all the time in a level of aspiration, how nice, how beautiful, if I have this mind. Though it is amazing, but we need to, like in the worldly projects, to really to have tangible results. It is not going to work. Just only that plan, that project is in our head. From head, then have to work, isn't it? Then we will see the tangible result. Similar to that here, to really to have the actual transformation, then have to apply those well-established techniques both the techniques are used by, these great masters more than 1,000 years. Like, for example, equalizing and exchanging oneself with others. This amazing technique, Nagarjuna has mentioned many times in his, like the Precious Garland, and particularly Shantideva in his Guide to the Bodhisattva Way of Life, chapter 8, around verse 89, systematically explained. And those are the things now we have to use. Yeah. So very, very useful to really to take the actual step, not to just stay in. So here in here this text, bless on me your bless on me. I mean, bestow on me your blessings to master the oceans of practice, cultivating immediately the supreme enlightened motivation by reflecting on the predicament of all mother sentient beings who have nourished me with a kindness from beginning this time. So that is, you can look at in the board in the 7-point cause and effect. There's 7 steps. Out of seven steps, the last one is the result, which is bodhicitta. The first 6 steps, we have this training to see the living beings are extremely kind to us in many different ways and in many times. So to cultivate sense of closeness, sense of dear, even currently the beings who are causing us trouble, cause trouble to our parents or our families. That is, training. So here it is really, saying, when it says ocean, the oceans of practice, to after cultivated bodhicitta through by applying one of those techniques, then really enter into oceans of practice. It's talking about bodhisattva's deeds, traditionally as what you call the 6 perfections. 6 perfections. If people who have studied, in the Gelug tradition, the Lamrim, in that extensive Lamrim, in the 2nd volume, which is translated in English, in the 2nd volume, where Geshe explains the technique, mainly explains 7-point cause and effect, also briefly touch on the other technique, equalizing and exchanging oneself with others. Then, he explained entering into the bodhisattva's deeds, practicing generosity, ethics, patience, then enthusiasm. Then the last two perfections, concentration and the wisdom. These 2 are mentioned in the last, out of the 3 volumes in English translation, in the last volume, where talk about cultivation of shamatha and the cultivation of vipassana. Along that, then vipassana in the sense wisdom realizing emptiness, which is the 6th perfection. So here, when it says, the master blessings to oceans of practice. That is what it's talking about. Oceans of practice. When it says supreme enlightened motivation, in other words, the bodhicitta, when cultivated bodhicitta. And how bodhicitta is cultivated? Understanding, realizing all living beings are very dear, very kind, and seeing their current situation, being in suffering, being in samsara, then working for their well-being. And that's what here, which is very, very useful to remember. Okay, page 9. And now the tortured, and now are the tortured while, ensnared within one extreme or other. So one extreme of other, we have seen this before. It says, which last line clearly explains, either on the will of suffering or in tranquil liberation. One extreme of another, it is referring to either we are continuously in samsara, that's what he says, either on the will of suffering or in tranquil liberation. Tranquil liberation is referring to just oneself being free from samsara, yet not attain full enlightenment, and just enjoying that tranquility, that peace, and not abiding in either extremes. So, in other words, the meaning of these last two lines, saying, and I'm going to work that all living beings not only free from samsara, but also, free from just that liberation, but to take them to or lead them to full enlightenment. That is what here, these last two lines in that verse. Snare here. Where is that? Sishi Kube Nave Manjus Tometini Tingi Yang with Sishi Kube Nave, Sishi Kube Nave, Nave Manju, Manjusam. Yeah, that's enough. Now the next verse. Here, people who are familiar with another short lamrim, which I briefly touched on last week or week before, that just uncovers foundation of all good qualities. Many of you have seen that text, read that text, clearly foundation of all good qualities. Yunden Shikurma in Tibetan, Yunden Shikurma. So here, some are very similar. Its structure is very similar where His Holiness have written in here. So up to this verse that we have written is training ourselves in the sutra path, sutrayana path, sutrayana path, including in the bodhisattva teachings, cultivating bodhicitta, engaging in bodhisattva's deeds, such as 6 perfections. So after this verse that we just finished, our minds, ourselves training in the sutrayana path. Now, from the next verse, the verse which is saying, bestow on me your blessings to generate the yoga. From this verse, then, training ourselves into Vajrayana. So here, bestow on me your blessing to generate the yoga, combining the mental quiescence with the penetrating insight, in which 100,000-fold splendor of holiness. I think the next one. This verse is referring to cultivating union of karma biting and special insight. Union of karma biting, special insight. Not just any kind of union of karma biting and special insight, the union of karma biting and special insight, which realizes emptiness. That is, as I just mentioned earlier, that what you call out of the sixth perfection and the fifth and sixth perfection, those two perfections in the Lamrim Chemo, Gradual Path to Enlightenment, that last volumes. And that is here, this verse. This verse reflect without, so when we have this union, the union of karma biting, or here translated as quiescence, mental quiescence, or union of karma biting and special insight, or what you call normally translated, use vipassana, karma, shamatha and vipassana, union of shamatha and vipassana, if we use the Sanskrit term. Not any kind of union of these two, but a union of these two, which realizes, that union realizes emptiness. And that realization becomes very, very powerful realization. Understanding of emptiness is powerful in the sense that will really challenge our self-grasping, which is the root of all our difficulties, the fundamental ignorance, that will really challenge the fundamental ignorance. I think Ayadev, that great Indian master, Ayadev, said, just being doubt what we see, what things and events appear to us, or how things and events appear to us. They appear to us very concrete, very solid, very independent in and of themselves. They appear to us like that. Just having doubt, somebody who doubts whether things and events exist in that fashion or not. Just having that doubt will really tatters the fundamental ignorance. Just having doubts that appearance of the things and events, that they appear to us, have a concrete, solid, independent, in and of themselves. And then do things and events really exist in that fashion? I am not sure. Just having that kind of doubt, then I don't need to mention if we have a real understanding that things and events do not exist in that fashion, in the fashion of how they appear to us. That is here. So then that understanding is, what you call that understanding is within the sphere or within the union of karma fighting and insight, or within the union of shamatha and vipassana. Union of shamatha and vipassana realizes that nature, the nature of emptiness, that is the most powerful realization. Okay. It says, Chamso Mongdan Galmechir, Shindu Nyeva Sajumin, one of Indian master, Dhammakirti, says, though love and compassion are very, very, powerful mental states, they are not directly contradicts with the self-grasping, with the fundamental ignorance. Therefore they will not get rid of fundamental ignorance. So love, compassion, altruism, they are very, very powerful mental states. They will really eradicate our self-centered mind, our egoistic mind, but they will not get rid of the fundamental ignorance, because they are not the opposite to that fundamental ignorance. The opposite mental state to the fundamental ignorance is the wisdom realizing emptiness. And that alone will get rid of the root of the cyclic existence. So that is here, this verse, when it's clear mirror in the last line in that verse, clear mirror of the immutable meditation. In other words, when we have that union, the union of karma-abiding and special insight, and that union realizes emptiness and stay in that meditative equipoise, that is immutable, the immutable meditative meditation. So very powerful. So in other words, there are two verses in great scope. The first verse is more training the bodhicitta and the sixth perfection, and the next verse is within the sixth perfection, last two perfections. Now then the next verse is the verse which is saying, bestow on me blessings to observe in secret accordance. And this verse is now going into Vajrayana. So as we all know, and our discussion have now, the last weeks reading this text, to really engage in training Vajrayana path, we have to, first train our mind in these common paths. Up to now, what we have, those verses that we have read. When we are ready, enter into Vajrayana, then we have to, encounter, the what you call the qualified Vajrayana master or masters, and receive from the Vajrayana masters, the what you call the initiation to introduce to the meditational deity, or personal meditational deity. And when they bestow upon us, or give us the initiation, introduce us the meditational deity, in the process of giving the initiation, introducing the meditational deity by the fully qualified Vajrayana masters, then what we have there is taking the Bodhisattva vows, taking the Vajrayana vows. And then, at least, the what you call the refuge. And then some people who ordain, Bodhisattva, the individual liberation, the Bhakti-moksha vows, which we have mentioned earlier. The Kadin Sumden, our teachers are kind from the three ways. And that three ways we have looked at in the several different, according to the sutrayana, according to the vajrayana. And according to the vajrayana, our spiritual masters are kind in the three, due to the from the three ways. There are two things from the two perspectives. First one is giving initiation, giving what's called instruction, and giving the advice. Wangku, Geshe, giving the Tantra. Mengan, giving the advice. Or another way of looking at is giving the individual liberations vow, either the monastic or the lay vows, and the bodhisattva vows, and the vajrayana vows. So giving those three vows, and therefore our spiritual master is kind in three ways. So here, after receiving initiations and introducing ourselves, the master introduces ourselves to the meditation of deity, and in the process receiving those vows and the commitments, then keeping them pure in the sense not breaking those vows. And here it says, the accordance, all the vows and words of the honor that form the root of powerful attainments. And it is the truth. It is true. Those vows, the bodhisattva vows, tantric vows, that we have received from the Vajrayana masters in the process of receiving the initiations, and keeping them. The main purpose of the vows is to train ourselves, training our minds. That's the main purpose, not really punishing us. It is mainly to train ourselves. So keeping them is the root. Having, entered through the gate of extremely profound Tantra by the kindness of my all, provisioned master. So that is really talking about train, Tenden Dojitsimbe, Shenyeji, Tinle Chesap, Naki Goshune, Modusawa, Tamsi Tomban, Session, never Chingilo. So blessings. At this stage, we may struggle to keep those vows, but then train ourselves, change our mental states, and that is the blessing. If we work to train ourselves to keep the vows, to keep the commitment, at this stage that we struggle, and listen the teachings. And through that, when we are able to change, then that is the blessing. That's the blessing. Okay, the last verse, I will leave it here today. We will read this last verse next week. And I think the next week, is it right? Next week is the last in this. Okay. So we have plenty time to finish this comfortably, remaining, the lines in the next week, Sunday. Oh, yeah. So, today's conclusion, and saying the 21 Tara prayers. Om je se ma pa ma do ma la cha se lo. Chan ze do ma nyu ma pa mo. Chen ne ke je lo da da. Je ge sum gun chu ji che je. Ke sa chi wa le ne zhong. Chan ze dong ge da wa gun do. Kang wa je ne zi be she. Ka ma dong da zo ba na ma je. Rab do che we we da ma. Chan ze zeng yu ju ni ge ge. Pe me chang ne na ba ra ge. Jin ba zun du ga du she wa. Se ba sam den ju ni. Chan ze te xin she ge zu do. Ta ye na ba ra jia wa che. Ma lu pa ru jin ba to be. Ya we se ge xin do den. Chan ze du da ra hong yi ge. Du da chou da nam ga. Chỉ để đồng bộ sắp đi nền để ngư bà mẹ bà ngư bà nè chẳng dễ để chính mẹ la chẳng bà nông la na cho văn chủ chờ trong bộ rồi na chế sa nam an đà nữ chuyên sau dễ đến nè để chẳng dễ để chế cha đăng thế chế phá rô chô cô rạp tô chồng để công yên đăng sắp đi nền để mẹ bà chô bà xin đô bà ràng chẳng dễ tu rê chế bà chèn bộ tuy địa bao năm bao tròn chư địa sáng nè cho nhẹ đèn dễ đau tham gia mà lựa sớm chẳng dễ quân cho sớm dễ trả để xem mẹ thu cả năm bao đèn mà lựa cho địa khó lối đèn bè ra dễ ở địa cho nó mà chưa mà chẳng dễ ra đồ cao quá chế bè ưu tiên ở địa thanh hóa bè sẽ bà ra sẽ tu ta ra đối đa chỉ kiến quan đồ dèm chẳng dễ sa shi kyung we cho tham chế ngũ bà nữ mà cho nhẹ ye wa yi ge hong ge hong bà tham chế nam bà cho mà chẳng dễ ta we đông bộ ô gen bà tham chế xin đồ bà ra để về trên này rồi bà mẹ ta bà ra xin đồ ra bà dèm chẳng dễ cái về tham mẹ ta bà về chân hoa uy nè ye jang yung kum ku ne ko te da ye pong ne na ba ra chong chang ze sa shi yung la cha ge te ji ne che sha ge dong to ne chen ze yi ge hong ge ren ba dong bo nam ne ge chang ze te ma ge ma shi ma yang en de xin ju ni so wa om da yang da den be de kwa chen bo chong ba ni chang ze ku ne ko ra ba ka Trái luyện nam bara kèm, cái chuyện về ngành này có để bảo không lẽ cho mà nhiều, chẳng dễ tôi để xem nên ta về không cái nắp về sao nhiều, để ra mình ta ra ta để chơi, chỉ cần sống na yêu nhiều, chẳng dễ lại chơi na về để ta chơi chẳng na ta ra nhiều chuyện phải cái đơn nào mà lựa bán xem chẳng dễ lại cho nó mới kể bỏ ta đã niệm chỉ đem quên nè của cha có chỉ để cho ta mới là văn nghe bảo xem chẳng dễ ni mà tao chỉ về chỉ nhẹ bỏ lại rồi xem hà ra như chưa tu ta ra xin đồ thắp lên nè xem chẳng dễ thì như sống năm cơ về chỉ về tu ta yang ta đem để ta rồi nó như chuyện so trong ba tu re rap cho ni za ve nga ji de ba de ta chan ze wa ne ni cho za chi ge wa de ji o sa na ma yi xie zo lo sa na ma yi xie le zhong we ta ba gu ni to ba chẳng cho sen cho ren bo che ma che pa na ma che ju che ba nyam ba me ba ya kong ne kong do pe wa ra cho ka de ra ve ko le shin ga ma de pen da de wa ma lu chung me chen re se wa ten zin ja so ni Shabe sede pado tenjoro che. Oh, yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you to Tsering.
very much.
Thank you,
Thank
Geshe.
Thank you very much, Geshe. Thank
Oh,
you
yeah.
very
Thank you
much.
so much, Geshe.
Thank you, Geshe. Thank you.
Take
Thank
care, and I will
Thank you.
see you next Sunday.
Yeah.
And next Sunday, I'm going to give oral transmission of this short text.
Oh, thank you.
So,
Thank you.
When I should be away.
After the remaining verses to give some explanation, then I will give the oral transmission at the end of the session. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good time.
Thank you.
And you.
Bye. Thank you very much.